Sometimes I don't let folks sit down until I have them say something. So this morning, turn to somebody and just say, "Sing, church, sing."
Sing, church, sing.
Now I want to make note of something this morning because just like Jesus in our gospel was being brought into the temple for the very first time in our reading this morning, as I was reading that, this little one came in for the very first time. This is Kaylee. This is Kaylee. We've heard so much about you. And when you came in, even though we were reading the gospel about Jesus coming in, everybody was watching you. I saw all the eyes. They weren't looking at me and reading anymore. They were, oh, there she is. For the very first time. God bless you. And welcome here this morning. What a joy. Well, friends, already this morning and even this week, we've been doing a lot of singing. Christmas Eve, and we had our service of lessons and carols, and the lessons and carols together told the story. If we didn't have the music, if we just had a silent Christmas, if we tried to have Christmas without even singing Silent Night, Holy Night, would it really seem like it was Christmas without the music? It would seem like something was missing. People would feel they had been cheated out of something. Our lessons today begin by telling us that the fullness of time had come. The fullness of time had come to claim us and to redeem us. And Cheryl, when you were reading it this morning, I heard even something I hadn't picked up before, to give us a new name. Wow. Our name is our identity. That's who we're known by. That's what it means when the fullness of time has come. We will receive a new name. Isaiah says, "I will greatly rejoice and I will not keep silent." Did you listen to the psalm this morning? It has all of creation joining together in the song. The angels, the sun, the moon, the shining stars, the heavens, fire, hail, snow, and frost. Well, maybe not those last two in South Florida. Mountains, hills, fruit trees, and cedars, even the monsters of the deep are singing a song today. And so this morning we as a congregation sang. And the choir sang. And then the children's choir upended the other choir and they sang their beautiful song. And just now Katie and Karen and Mike sang. And so also we hear that Simeon, the man who was there in the temple, sang. And Anna, along when she came, she sang. And friends, I'm telling you this morning, we as a church should take heed from that. And we should sing. Sing, church, sing. And we should listen to the words of the songs. Now, here I confess, I'm going to be in a little bit of trouble. See, I had prepared my sermon based on the fact that they were singing a different song just now. That they were going to sing, "Mary, Did You Know?" And of course, we heard Darlene sing that last week as well. And I thought to myself, wow, we made such a colossal error here. How in all of our planning did we end up singing, do we end up having the same song as a special 2 weeks in a row? Well, turned out, of course, they sang something different, so that point is moot, but I understand that next week you're going to sing Rejoice, good Christian friends, rejoice, and go tell it on the mountain again. We're singing those today, so something's going on here. And so I'm starting to wonder, maybe it's not because we didn't do our planning right. Maybe sometimes there are things that we need to hear more than once before we get it. That it needs to come to us. And that when we take time in a deeper moment of reflection, that we can stop and listen the second time and not just be amazed by the presentation and the performance, but actually listen to what the words are trying to say to us. sometimes we miss the very things that we so desperately need to hear because we weren't paying attention enough the first time. So now, here's the part where I'm really in trouble, because I actually went into the words, Katie, of this song. So whenever you guys decide to sing it, I'll come back and preach the rest of the sermon with you. But the question that is asked in that song, see, I did pay attention to it the second time around, okay? I went online, I made sure I got all the words, and now you're going to get the benefit of that as well. There was the question, Mary, did you know that your baby boy will save our sons and our daughters, and that he will one day walk on water? Mary, did you know that your baby boy will calm a storm with his hand, or give sight to a blind man? Mary, did you know that your baby boy has walked where the angels trod, or that when you kiss him, you kiss the face of God? Mary, did you know? Her world. Kaylee, your world. Baby Jesus' world, our world, it's all about to change. Certainly by the time Simeon is finished singing his song, because when he sees the baby Jesus there in the temple, he begins to sing, "Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord." Somebody should right now be saying, "Pastor, that's not the right song." That's not the song that Simeon sang. You're right, it's not. The song that he sang was a little different. He began to say, "Lord, now dismiss your servant in peace, according to your words. For mine eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of every people, a light to lighten the Gentiles and the glory of your people, Israel." Now here's a question for those who have been in the Lutheran Church for a long enough time. And when I say long enough time, I mean before the cranberry book that we sometimes use, before the green book, but back to the red book before that. Carol, you're nodding because your dad probably used that and you grew up with it as well. Do you remember those words from Simeon? Do you remember singing those words? I've tried singing them this week and I decided not to impose that on the congregation. But what I remember about those words is when they came. Do you remember when in the liturgy they were sung every week? They were sung at the end of communion. Right after communion, Lutherans would sing those words of Simeon as a response. Because you see, at that moment, we have been empowered by the gift of God's grace in our lives. We had been strengthened so that we could go on into the next week and we could say, "Lord, now mine eyes have seen the salvation which you have promised." And so just like Simeon and just like Anna, we had to sing as Lutherans, and we still do, because the music is powerful. The music impacts our lives and changes who we are. Terry, you shared a video with me this week. She sent me a video with a story that I've heard before, but it wasn't until I got the video from you that I realized the significant marker. So here's the story. Exactly 100 years ago, Christmas in the year 1914, the English and the Germans were in the trenches. It was called the Great War because you don't number wars if there's only one. Later became known as World War I. And so there they were, shooting at each other, fighting with each other, killing each other over a few feet of frozen, muddy land. Back and forth they went. Some days one side got the better, sometimes the other side got the better. And the details aren't completely clear, but the story is this, that 100 years ago, on Christmas Eve, 1914, both the English and the German soldiers began to sing. independently. The one side was singing, Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht. The other side was singing, Silent Night, Holy Night. And somehow their voices were carried through that space. And then in that moment of time, they heard each other singing different words, but clearly the same song and with the same intent. And so some of them drew together their courage and they emerged from the trenches without their weapons. And there was that night a truce from fighting. In the midst of the singing, they got up and wished each other Merry Christmas, Frohe Weihnachten. They exchanged some gifts even, small things like chocolates, coffee, cigarettes. They shared pictures of the girls they had left behind, the young women that they hoped one day to go back and be married to and have a family together with. There's even a description that says that they had a football game. And they said football, though if Americans had been there, we would have said, oh, what is that, soccer? And it didn't happen everywhere along the front. There were still soldiers who died that very night along the front. But in some places, because of the music, there was a moment of peace that overcame the wartime efforts. There was a moment of the breaking in of the kingdom of God into the very deepest spot of hell on earth. And an English company has made a commemoration video of that moment to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of that night. And you can ask Terry to forward you a copy of it, or you can go on my Facebook page and see it there. The singing, it doesn't mean that there is no more pain. It doesn't mean that there is no more sorrow. Maybe someday it will mean that. But Simeon makes sure that Mary knows it is not the case just right now. Because he said to her, this child is destined for the falling and rising of many in Israel as a sign to be opposed, and a sword shall pierce your own heart also. It's not just going to be an easy road. And I wonder what Mary thought about those words when she heard them at that moment and when she remembered them some 30 years later when she watched her baby boy being hung up on a cross and left there to die. In our lives too, difficult situations continue to arise. But those situations are not a reason. They are not an excuse for us not to find ways of still singing that praise. Because yesterday in a church in Glendale, Queens, they sang Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound to commemorate Officer Ramos, who we found out in this week, not only was he a police officer, but he was studying to become a pastor. And so even in the midst of the pain, they sang God's song. And today, this afternoon, we as a congregation are going to go and we're going to sing for our vets over at Miniatures. I'm going to ask later on, so get ready for a show of hands how many people we have who are expecting to come. Because you know what? As Christians, as Lutherans, we need to sing. And there's no excuse about, oh, I can't carry a tune in a bucket. Oh, we'll all be there together. It's not about how beautiful your voice is. It's about how beautiful the melody is to God and to the people who receive it. And so we'll sing some Christmas carols. Maybe we'll sing a Hanukkah song for the Jewish vets. But we'll bring them a song of strength and of joy in the midst of the season. And by the way, we'll serve some ice cream and might get some for ourselves. Not a bad deal. maybe taking Christmas shoeboxes on board Ukrainian freighters this past Friday, as our team of 6 did. We didn't sing any songs, but maybe our being there was a song in itself. And who knows what kind of difference that will make. Next week, I'm asking for your prayers because I and a group of 7 pastors from the Florida Bahamas Synod are traveling down to Haiti. And we're going to be there, and we plan to share with them for a week in their deacons training about hope and suffering. And I know we're going to be singing because Haitians love to sing. And so sing we must, and sing we will. And I close this morning with the words of Dr. Howard Thurman. He was the dean of Rankin Chapel at Howard University in Washington, D.C. many years ago, when he became the mentor for a young man who came through there called Martin Luther King, Jr. And he wrote these words titled, "The Work of Christmas Begins." He says, "When the song of the angels is stilled, and when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock, then the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among all peoples, and to make music in the heart." So make some music. Sing, church. Sing. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.